Good evening. Thank you for joining me as I will take you through a little bit about how I do things in my classroom and then a little bit about myself as well. First, here's some background on my education as a teacher. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of South Florida, a graduate certificate in teaching digitally enhanced mathematics, also from the University of South Florida. And then thereafter, I have acquired my gifted education endorsement as well. I've been at Dunedin Highland Middle School for a total of 12 years now. I am also the mathematics chair. And in my personal life, I'm married to a teacher who teaches elementary school, kindergarten to be specific, in Hillsborough County. I am a father to two beautiful girls by the name of Charlotte and Autumn. And something that I think defines me and would let you know a little bit about me is a quote that is very important to me and something I live by in my life is be the change you wish to see in the world. And this is impactful for me as an educator and as a father and as a man. A few of my favorite things. At the center, you will see the wife and daughters that I spoke of, and that big feller there, that's me. You'll notice down on the bottom left a movie theater. I'm an avid movie enthusiast. You'll see in the top left and the top right something that you'd find outdoors. I love to be outdoors. I love riding my bike. Specifically, the sign about the Ben and Jerry's, that's actually from one of our favorite vacation spots as a family, which is Vermont. Beautiful, beautiful place. If you've never gotten the chance to go, I would highly recommend. Oftentimes the fuel and elixir that I run on is coffee. So as you can see on the left and the right side, I have Starbucks and Dunkin' listed. I'm not picky though. I like all kinds of coffee. And that would also lend itself to the headphones that are underneath the Starbucks thing. I like all sorts of different music. Every once in a while, I will have songs and stuff playing in the background as kids are working, which I haven't started doing just yet, but that is something that I do like to have part of my classroom. Top right, as a closing notes, you'll see the star. That would be the Dallas Cowboys. I'm an avid Cowboys fan, despite them losing to the Bucks the first week. And then something that brings me great joy as of late would be the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm a huge, huge hockey fan, and obviously things have been going great for them. Something about me as an educator and how my classroom works. These are two big names in education, Maslow and Bloom. Maslow having to do with the relationships formed with students and providing an environment where they feel safe. And that's something that I'm a huge, huge believer in. I value the relationships with my students greatly because I find when they trust and feel comfortable, they'll take risks and do things that they may not feel comfortable doing, and that's important in education. Bloom being somebody that outlines like higher level thinking and questioning and such, but I really can't get to some of the things that we look at in Bloom's research without the relationships that I form with my students. Both the classes that I teach mathematically are high school classes, that is algebra and geometry honors. What you will find, no matter which class your son, daughter, child are taking, is they will have an end of course exam at the end of it. So where they would normally take their FSA, they will take an end of course exam. They will not take both. To give you an idea when that will fall, and to avoid vacationing at this point in time, it will be in May of 2022. It is not just a requirement to pass it to receive credit from my class. It's actually something where they have to pass it in order to accomplish a feat towards high school graduation. So they do need to pass their EOC not only to get credit for the class, they also have to pass it to graduate high school. So it's a big deal, and it's a challenge that I openly accept. Another important thing to know with the class is it being a high school class and middle school education not wanting to hold back their GPA. If they see students struggling with D's and F's in these high school math classes, they will pull them from it and place them in the lower level mathematics course. Even if they are in the gifted center, they would pull them from it, and then they would just transplant them to the teacher that they would be teaching that other course. In this case, it would actually be Mrs. Vaughn, and they would be taking pre-algebra. These are things that obviously I can talk in greater detail about, but ultimately I will have them working, but I will have them ready for those tests. Okay, I think it's really hard to give a big snapshot of both those classes and not get too carried away with talking. So this is exactly what I've thrown there. These are a lot of the topics that we will talk about over the course of the year. It is not to say that it is the only thing that we talk about, but this gives you a pretty good idea. Resources that we'll use for this class. Most of these are going to be electronic resources as I embrace those. But I do use traditional as well as wanting to use handouts or workbook pages so that I can see the process of their work, because the process is oftentimes greater than the results. And I want to see what their thinking is. So you'll see on the left side Clever, which is basically the access point to Focus, Canvas, and those other two resources, which are called Quizzes and IXL. Quizzes and IXL are basically something where I can use for assignments, and they give immediate feedback, which is powerful to the student and parent alike. In the middle and the right side, it kind of goes into specifics for algebra and geometry. As you can see, each one of those, ConnectEd and then Savvis EasyBridge, those are basically the access points onto the online resources for the course. You'll notice the duplication of Algebra Nation there for both. That's a resource that's not just algebra, it also is geometry based too, and I use those resources primarily for preparation for the end of course exam. So I really don't start to use them until the spring and closer towards summer, but every once in a while I'll kind of supplement with them. Big thing that I want to be clear on, and oftentimes is confusion with the parents, is Canvas versus Focus. Canvas is going to be basically the destination where if a student is going to be absent or they're in class and they need to access certain files or something like that, that's the place they're going to go. If they need to upload work, that's the place they're going to go. One thing that's unique to me that you probably won't find for every teacher is I actually have the recordings of the lessons that take place in class. Now, mind you, they would be recordings that I filmed last year in CATS and carried over to this year, but it's going to match quite nicely to the notes that I will use in class. And that's a really, really invaluable resource if a student is going to miss a day, two, or more. Focus is actually going to be the place where if you want to know how they're performing and what their grade is, that's your place. In both Canvas and Focus, I will enter stuff in. I tend to grade first in Canvas and then move those grades over to Focus because that's the final destination for grades. And I may put some feedback and stuff in Canvas, but I tend to also put that feedback and those comments in Focus too, so you get those insights and know why points were taken off or no credit was issued at all. I tend to aim to have stuff graded within 24 hours, and by and large, I'm good about that, but sometimes when I'm grading tests, it backs me up with other things, so it may stretch sometimes to 48 hours, but usually anything turned within a week's time is there before the close of the week without question. Something to definitely know, and I think it's the fair approach, is please know that things that are turned in on time are always going to be prioritized over things that are turned in late. So if your child turns something in late, just know that that's not going to be the first thing I grade. I'm going to take care of all the other stuff that was turned in on time before I get to that, which I think is the right move. Supplies needed. I tend to be a minimalist. I tend to utilize most of the resources and supplies that my colleagues would call for. The only thing that I really specifically asked for was a 3-subject spiral or a binder with dividers as a substitute, and then also a scientific calculator. Now, if they didn't have the scientific calculator, that's okay. I have a class set in my classroom, but it's really a wise move to have your own and starting to grow that relationship and comfort with knowing all the tools that are there on the instrument. For geometry specifically, I also asked for a geometry set, which would need a ruler, protractor, and compass as pictured above. And it does have those special triangles in there, which we will talk about later in the year. And those were the things I called for. Last thing down there, the weight of the backpack. That's a concern that we've talked about. Many parents and also the teachers collectively have given careful consideration about. When we have these students' laptops, they're great and everything, but that's an added weight to backpacks. And when you add that on to the other things going on and not having lockers, that's where we have issues. So one thing that I've done is really kind of streamline it down to what's needed and given encouragement to the kiddos where if there's something that you don't need to bring home on a day-to-day basis, I've got a slot or spot on the bookshelf where they can stash it based on what class they're in. Some students take me up on that, and some want to have every little thing with them at all times. So if you have concerns about that, please reach out and we can talk about what's needed versus what's wanted. As far as contacting me, as I just alluded to, that is my email address, russellju@pcsb.org. As you'll see with the asterisk there is some lucky fellow who is Russell J that receives an awful lot of email that's intended for me, but doesn't get to me. It is Russell J.U., not Russell J at pcsb.org. I tend to be pretty good about getting back to emails, usually within 24 hours. If it's something that you send to me over the weekend, please know that I'm not always checking my email over the weekend. I may check it Sunday night or Monday morning is the earliest I might see it. So please be patient, but I tend to be pretty darn timely. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.